We're good to go. Well, good morning, everyone. And I would like to call the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District Board to order for Thursday, November 12th, 2020. So first item is adoption of the minutes.
So moved.
Thank you. And seconded. Discussion on the minutes.
Is that business arising yet or?
No,
No. Okay, I've got business.
just on adoption. Hearing nothing further. Is there anyone opposed to adoption? Seeing none, we'll call that one passed. Business arising, Director Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The final motion in the minutes refers to the letter writing to the Premier and the Leader of the Opposition to request that pathology services at North Island hospitals be reinstated and that the North Island be excluded from the VIPCC contract. And when that motion was presented, the election was called a week later. And now we've got a situation where we might not have a legislature meeting until the new year. So would it be advisable to redirect our letter to somebody who can do something about this issue? Through me to the chair.
Okay. Pardon me? No, you can. And then we'll go to Director Hemier.
Thanks, Director Lee. Directors James Warren speaking, and Russell Dyson sends his regrets. He's unable to attend today. In response to Director Lee's question, we did receive a correspondence. Chair Cornfield received correspondence from the Assistant Deputy Minister at Ministry of Health, Stephanie Power, earlier this week, and she's indicating that she has, in conversation with Minister Dix and other senior staff, she is encouraging Island Health and specifically Vice President for Clinical Operations to be working with the CSRHD board to provide updates and provide metrics regarding lab services and that. So we did receive a response, and the direction was that Island Health is poised to be able to provide information and rationale and resources to the regional district as needed, to the regional hospital district as needed.
Well,
Just
I think
a
we've
second.
heard enough from them.
Hang on, Director Lee.
We do need.
Just
Oh, sorry, didn't hear you.
yeah. Now, did that one get sent out to all the board members?
It did. It's available to the board members. It only came in to you, I think, earlier this week.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
So it was circulated to the board.
I haven't seen it yet.
Okay. And I have Director Hemier.
No, I don't think my hand was up, but I'll just say I did read that correspondence in the correspondence list for the hospital board.
Okay, thank you. Okay. And who's that before?
Probably get rid of that one.
There we go. Anything further on new business? Or business arising rather, sorry. Thank you, James. Keep me on my toes. Seeing none, we'll move on. There's no petitions and delegations, no reports. Item number 1, the 2021 Provisional Budget. Motion to receive.
Motion
to receive.
Thank you. Moved by Director Lee, seconded by Director Unger. And so on the report dated November 6th on the provisional budget, any discussion? Director Hemier.
I was hoping that we could hear from staff first before I did have a question, but.
Okay, no problem. Director Lee, do you want to hear from staff first? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I'm pleased to introduce Mariah Fort, our Chief Financial Officer, to pass it over to Kevin Duville, our Manager of Financial Planning. And Kevin will present information on this staff report. Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you very much. Through the chair to the directors, good morning. So I just have a brief verbal report speaking to the staff report in front of you today, and then would be happy to answer any questions. So of course, the budget that is presented to you today is our provisional budget for 2021. This is being presented to you in compliance with the hospital district's financial planning policy that was last updated back in October of 2018. And in that policy, it does outline kind of the next series of opportunities for the hospital district to see further iterations of this budget. Again, once we get into the new year and get the updated rules from BC Assessment. Of course, the provisional budget is a legislative requirement of the Hospital District Act. We must have one adopted prior to December 31st. And then, of course, the annual budget will need to be adopted prior to March 31st of 2021. So moving into the budget overview, what's in front of you today is a provisional requisition for 2021 of 17 million. That remains unchanged and has been unchanged since 2015. What that means for a household, that would result in a residential or an estimated residential tax rate per thousand of taxable value of just over 54 cents. For a house assessed at 500,000, that would equate to $270. Or if you looked at a house, say, of 550, that would equate to taxation of $297. For every $1 million of requisition here, you're looking at about a $16 change for a household at that $500,000 benchmark. As I just mentioned, apportionments will be recalculated in early January once the 2021 completed rolls are received. So what's in your package today is still continued to be based on the 2020 revised roll. The overall provisional budget for 2021 is currently at $19,404,043, which is just shy of $240,000 less than what it was in 2020. Once again, the annual funding allocation for Island Health of $1.85 million for minor equipment and projects is included in this budget, same as in prior years. And as always, that is continued to be funded entirely through the current year taxation. The budget also includes the unconditional grants of $5,000 each for the 6 health center clinics that we provide unconditional funding to. And again, that's per the financial planning policy. With respect to prior year equipment and projects between $5,000 and $100,000, we're just continuing to carry forward the $1.95 million for the projects that were previously committed in prior years. Currently, Iron Health has not identified any new major capital projects in excess of $1.5 million for 2021. Although we don't receive their project report until usually right at the late end of January. The only current major capital project we're carrying forward is about $165,000 for the UDMD project. Otherwise, at this point, all other projects are assumed completed, but again, we'll be looking at those carry forwards as we move into the new year. Looking quickly at our debt servicing, current debt servicing is anticipated to be $7.8 million in principal payments and another $2.9 million for interest. That's broken down in our 2 debt issues. That's firstly issue 99. That consists of total debt servicing of $24,800, or broken down in $16,000 for principal and about $8,500 for interest. The term of that debt issue ends in 2026. And the larger one being for the North Island Hospital projects, issue 146, total debt servicing of $10.7 million, broken down 7.8 for principal and another 2.9 for interest. And of course, that is due to end in 2028. The provisional budget currently also includes a contribution to reserves in 2021 totaling $4.37 million. And at this point, uncommitted funds in our FFE reserve at the end of December 31st, 2020 are estimated to be 22.2 million. With the current budgeted contribution of 4.37 million in 2021, that would bring that reserve balance up to 26.6 million at the end of 2021. And lastly, the administrative charge for the Comox Valley Regional District to support the hospital district continues to be at the 2012 level at $151,000. That's all I have. And again, I'm certainly available to ask questions.
Okay, I have, for speaking orders, I have Director Hamir.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to staff for that report and breaking it down. My question is actually to the rest of the board. You know, when we last discussed our requisition levels, I think we had decided to keep them unchanged. Now, if my memory is correct, this was prior to COVID really taking hold in the province and in the country. And I'm wondering how the rest of the board would feel about changing our requisition level to lower it, particularly because we have over $4 million going into reserve that we don't really have anything to put it towards. If at least we could reduce our requisition by the 4.3 million, just to save tax dollars for our community members who have been hit hard, not just by COVID, but by a number of different issues in the community. So just raising that question, if that's something that the board would be open to discussing.
Okay, thank you. Director Morin.
Oh, okay. I didn't have my hand up. I was going to get in the queue, but I'm not in the queue yet, I don't think.
You're on my computer.
My little hand is not showing.
Okay.
So,
No problem. And I guess it's Kevin shows up as you on the computer here. So,
okay.
okay, it's my apologies. Director Grieve.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. My question is directed over to Kevin DeVille. It mentions that we're going to park our reserve fund in MFA, some kind of a high interest MFA account. We're going to have 26.6 million by the end of the next budget. I'm just curious. We don't want to be losing money on those reserves, and I think the cost of living is increasing pretty quickly. So, what kind of interest rate are we looking at?
For the staff.
Through the chair to the directors. Thank you for the question, Director Grieve. So at this point, yes, about 2 years ago, MFA established a series of high interest pooled lending accounts to support both regional districts and regional hospital districts. So again, that will be an ongoing discussion between myself and the CFO, Mariah Fort, as to the amount of dollars we want to put over to those funds. I'm just going to pull up the interest. Obviously, with where interest rates are now, they're not significant. I mean, they're certainly higher than what you would garner in a traditional checking or low interest savings account. Off the top of my head, I would say the last interest rates I saw were kind of in the high 2.5% or 3%, but I could certainly get some updated numbers for you.
So just further, please, just to make sure then that we I think, what are we running, about 2.2 on inflation right now? So we're just basically just keeping ahead of the curve.
I would say that's accurate, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, I have Director Adams and then Director Morin.
Thank you. And just briefly touching on Director Grieve, as a trustee for the MFA, you're pretty much hard pressed to find anybody now that's giving an interest rate that's at or above the rate of inflation. And MFA is probably one of the best bets that we have right now for investing our money in the short term. In looking at this proposal for our requisition on the provisional budget, My first thought was there ability to use part of this surplus that we have in this requisition to pay down our MFA debt, but that's not possible as we're locked in with those debt payments for the balance of the term. That being said, I think Director Hamir was reading my notes because we are on exactly the same page. We have a requisition that is growing exponentially. And yet we don't have any allocation as to how we're going to use those funds. And that will be decided at our strategic plan whenever we get around to be able to do that. So I would certainly be in favor of reducing that requisition by the 4 million contribution for 2021, or until such time that we have, as a board, determined what our strategic plan is for those funds that we are requisitioning the taxpayer for. Thank you.
Okay, I have a thank you, Director Adams. I have Directors Moran, Abram, Anderson, and Frisch. So Director.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I was just going to speak in support of the idea that Director Hamir had, and I think the rest of my comments have been covered. So if there's a will to put something forward, I'd be in support of that. Thank you.
Okay. And Director Abram.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I couldn't have said it better from the previous directors, Director Adams, Director Hamir, and that's one of my only notes here on that particular report about that reserve amount, and I cannot support the budget if that stays in there the way it is. So I will hope that it can be removed and the requisition can be reduced accordingly.
Okay, thank you. Director Anderson.
Thank you. Just to follow up on Director Hamir's point, which is obviously live for many of us. If we were to reduce the requisition by that 4 million, I'm just looking to staff to know what the requisition impact would be, or so the taxation impact would be on the average home. How much would the average home be saving? Do we have can we do some back of the envelope work there?
So through the chair to the directors, yes. So if we were to reduce the requisition from the current proposed 17 million down to 13 million, and thus $4 million reduction, that would result in a drop of about $64 for a household at 500,000. So currently we had said that for a house at 500,000 it'd be $270. That would then drop to $204. Or sorry, $7.
So that's not unsubstantial. That's good to know. That being said, $4 million is also massively substantial for a really long future consideration of care. So thanks for that.
Thank you. Director Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I would, in general, be in favor of also lowering the requisition. But following on Director Anderson's comments, perhaps we meet 3/4 of the way if we do want to continue putting something away. But I'm happy to go wherever the board wants to go. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Director Cole Hamilton.
You're muted.
Okay.
You're there. If you could speak louder, Director Cole Hamilton.
I've got myself unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. I'll make it brief. For the reasons set out by Director Adams, I would support the suggestion of 4 million.
Louder, please.
Is that any better?
It is now. I turned it up at this end too.
Excellent. Okay, well, please let me know if I can't be heard. Just briefly, I wanted to say that I agree with Director Hamir's recommendation for the reasons set out so clearly by Director Adams, and yeah, would support the $4 million reduction in the requisition. Thanks.
Okay. Director Kerr. Then Unger and Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, staff, for the report. I realize reading through the report that one of the things that the Act allows us to fund for capital projects is mental health facilities. And I'm wondering, given the shortage of addiction recovery facilities on the North Island, whether that's something that could be covered by our funding, and whether that would have to come from Island Health, or whether the board here could request looking at delivering more facilities for addiction, as we know that a lot of the homelessness that we're seeing is actually addiction issues, not necessarily just lack of shelter. So just a question about that.
Go ahead.
Thanks for the question. So you're correct. The legislation does permit hospital districts to fund a variety of facilities through the whole scope of health in the health system, and we would be looking to Island Health as the partner for direction and input and some guidance around what those facilities would look like. And I think that the strategic plan session that the board is wanting to have, and that is going to be available when we can resume a face-to-face process, the board would put its mind to what facilities or what services would it look to contribute towards beyond the acute care facilities that it has traditionally supported.
Okay. Yeah, well, it's just for clarity, the Act right now says it has to be a named acute care facility.
I believe it's a named facility.
Named facility.
Yes.
And so that limits us to the ones that are named, unless the minister is to add or subtract from that list. So those are, yeah, as you said, it's why we wanted to have that strategic plan, because we're facing pressures, not just for addictions, but smaller communities that are out there, and the improvement to their existing facilities. So we have directors Unger, Lee, Hamir, and Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. I would be definitely in favor of lowering the requisition at this time. Maybe not the whole 4 million, but say 3 million, leave $1 million in there, just in case as we go through next year with continuing on with COVID. We may have some extra costs here that we don't know about.
Okay, thank you. Director Lee.
Hi. The reason that we were collecting this tax rate was for expansion of the potential expansion of the hospitals when we ran out of room, because when they were built, they didn't have enough room. But considering COVID and the amount of hurt that's in the communities right now, I think we should take a tax holiday and drop the tax rate to 0.273 per thousand, which would save $135 per home, and move 9 million of the 26 million in reserves to capital and add it into our 2021 budget. So I'm going a lot further than any of the other directors have stated so far, 3 or 4 million. That doesn't really make too much difference to the taxpayers, like $48 or $30 to $48. I'm talking $135 per home. That's a meaningful reduction. We do have the money, and we don't have any plan on how we want to use it, except for long-term future hospital expansion. So I would like to support dropping the tax rate for sure.
Okay.
But I would support dropping it to 0.273, which would save 135 per home and move 9 million from reserves from that 26 million reserve into capital for 2021.
Okay, thank you, Director Lee. Now, before I go to second time speakers, I want to say a few words myself. And I guess this is one of the reasons why we wanted to do it at a strategic session, so that we get different thoughts and ideas on how much, if we want to reduce the requisition. We're going to be, well, we're already facing a lot of different pressures for expansion of our mandate from the current acute care facilities, whether it's Island Health has identified that seniors care is one of their top priorities. We rank, I think, first and second on the lists, but it's currently outside our mandate. Those could be very expensive propositions, and the amount that we've got in the reserve was designed so that we could do things like that or get involved with different things. My concern today is, and we had hoped to have had our strategic planning session last September. Right now, we're coming from a range of everything from $16 annual reduction to, I think the biggest was 140, 160. That was, someone had suggested taking the 4.5 million. I'll throw another one in. What if we didn't tax the public this year at all and use the reserves to cover it off and save the taxpayers the almost $300 a year? So I think we've got a range of options in there, and the approach I would support is that we request a report on different options and what it means to the capital and what it means to our future, what it means to our taxpayer to reduce. So I think if we do that, we are not in any big rush. This is a provisional budget. But if we can refer it to staff to come back to the board with a full range of options and what it means to the taxpayers. And just to remind staff, or at least not to staff, but to the board, last year I had contacted staff before I talked with the chair of the CVRD and the SRD about the impacts of reducing the requisition last year as something to offset impacts by COVID. We couldn't implement it last year, hence going into the strategic session this last fall. The other thing I would like to do is look at options where we can have a strategic session, not face-to-face, but maybe a blended face-to-face and virtual strategic session. Not sure if anyone else is doing it, but I'm sure we could find consultants that would be able to look at that. And so I would put it out to the board, but is this something you would like to do rather than holding off until we can do a face-to-face with the entire board? And then just before I go to my speakers list, I can see our financial officer, Mariah Ford.
Thank you through the chair. I just will comment on just a couple of options that have been discussed about using reserves to offset the requisition. We do have a strong amount of reserves in the funds right now that are unallocated. However, every time you dip into your reserves to fund your annual costs, you put yourself in a situation where you have to recover that in future years. And so I would just be cautious that it might provide some savings to your taxpayers this year, but then it could result in a big swing up next year. And would they remember those savings that they saw? So, we do have that $4 million or so over and above our annual cost of around $13 million that, I think personally, I would feel comfortable in reducing and maintaining that requisition at kind of a stable level to offset costs. And we do have a bit of reserves in the pot there for future projects, but I would just caution any reduction below that level of using reserves to fund your requisition or your operating costs, because it just puts you in a situation later that you have to recover, and it could, increase your volatility of your future requisitions to taxpayers.
Okay, so you could put together an options report for us, pros and cons of various levels.
Yep, correct.
Okay, thank you. Now I go back to my speakers list, and thank you, board, for your consideration. Director Hamir, followed by Director Anderson.
Well, I was going to second your motion, Chair, but I know Director Lee's motion was on the floor, so I would like to give
There is no motion. There is no motion on the floor. It's just it's on receipt right now. So once we finish up receipt and questions on the provisional budget, the board can cogitate on things, and we'll take any motions following receipt. Okay. Does that answer Director Hamir?
It does. Thanks.
Okay, Director Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. I really wanted to speak to what you were commenting on about the strategic plan. I think it's imperative that we do a strategic planning session as soon as we reasonably can in some kind of blended online in-person way. I understand all of the caution that we have instituted early on in this pandemic, but I don't think we're going to be out of this for a long time. I'm hearing, the health authorities and other authorities say, probably a year or two. I've heard others say that the very nature of a pandemic is that it's, 3 to 5 years. Who knows? But I think this is the new normal for quite a while. And in these times of change and crisis, our leadership is needed more than ever. So I would really, really support some kind of spacious way as possible to really dig into these things. And on the heels of that, I also do offer the board caution in making too deep cuts, following on what Mariah said, because if indeed we are in this pandemic situation for the years to come, people are not going to be faring any better next year or the year after that. So if we want to be not putting money aside into reserves for the many years to come, that's certainly a decision of the board, but I wouldn't think that this year is going to be any different than the years ahead. So if we want to be not funding reserves for the long time, then certainly we can take a look at that. But it's so linked to the conversation about what we would indeed do with those reserves. So I struggle actually to know how to have this good budget conversation without some clear direction about what we are saving for or indeed not saving for. So I would very much support the chair to set a strategic planning session this winter, indeed, before we finish the budget conversations, if that was at all possible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Director Hillian, Sullivan, and Frisch.
Thanks, Chair. I think some excellent points have been raised in this good discussion. I'd like to suggest we dispense with receipt and entertain a motion to request a staff report outlining our options for the requisition.
If you could hold that thought, we will call a question on receipt. I have two more speakers, and that's Director Sullivan and Frisch.
Thank you, Chair. Just to continue on to Director Kerr's points, rather than see a requisition lowering of $64 per home, I would think that $4 million would go towards some mental health support, and I would be supporting something like that. The Valley is in need of money to support those issues.
Okay, thank you. Director Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And so I would also support looking into some strategic planning. I think that's really important, especially considering our budget discussions. And I would just reiterate that I wouldn't want to see too deep a cut into our reserves. I think it would be wise to keep them healthy like they are now. And as I mentioned before, it may be worthwhile hedging our bets and still putting a little bit every year into that. But I'll leave that up to the discussion, hopefully to come at the next meeting. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Director Grieve, and then Adams, and then I'd like to call the motion on receipt.
I won't belabor the point. I would remind the board that we're talking not about saving up for a water park. We're talking about healthcare in the midst of a pandemic. And to assume that things are going to go any way, shape, or form back to any kind of normal is just speculation. We don't know. We're also looking at governments right now, and Andy can maybe correct me on this, but I do think that the province is slated for about a 65 billion deficit, and I think the feds are somewhere over 1.2 trillion. So we aren't going to be able to go with our begging bowl to senior government for more money. So we have to look after our own house. So I will be supporting a good long look at what we can do.
Thank you, Director Grieve. Just before I go to Director Adams, on our speakers list, we have someone identified as CR 2020. And on the
yes, Chair, that's me, Colleen
Oh,
Evans.
okay.
Yes, Director Evans. Thank
Good.
you.
Thank you, Director Evans.
Yes.
So, Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Would just like to have the question called, and we'll have a subsequent.
Okay. I think we're going to have a rush to see who can get their first subsequent in, but
I just did.
no, I think Director Lee's light beat you to it. Anyway, we'll call a question on receipt. Is there anyone opposed? Is there anyone opposed to receipt? Hearing none, we will call that motion passed. So before I go to the recommendation, Director Adams.
Thank you. I'll move that the requisition be reduced by 4.4 million for 2021 until such time that we have the strategic plan completed.
Second.
Okay.
If I may speak to it.
Yes.
Certainly appreciate the comments of alternate sources for use of these funds, but that's what the strategic planning session is for. This is a budget financial planning process for 2021. We already have 22.2 million in this reserve, and the motion is just to not have the additional 4.4 million for 2021 until we have made a decision at financial planning or strategic planning. Thank you.
Okay. Director Abram.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I totally agree with Director Adams. We should reduce it by the amount mentioned. And I would also say that I really don't believe that in this pandemic situation that we're in, that we are going to have any appetite by anybody to be doing anything in the way of expanding hospitals or, adding facilities or any of those kinds of things. So I don't think there's any panic to be putting aside the amount of reserve that we have. So if we could just pass this motion, have our strategic planning, and get on with it.
Okay, Director Friesen and Lee.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And the irony isn't lost on me that I am now arguing against something that I argued for a year ago. But I don't know if there's appetite on the board to wait for a staff report with some options and look at going partway and maybe continuing to put a little bit of money into our reserves, whether that's $500,000 or $1 million. But I'm going to throw that out there, and if there's no support, I'll gladly support the current motion. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I have Directors Lee and then Anderson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support the motion. I think this year we need to help our constituents to be able to have money to eat better, to stay healthy at home. And I regard this as an anomaly this year. In normal times, or if we ever get back to normal times, I wouldn't support not putting money into reserves and not moving forward the way we have been towards the long-term planning for our hospitals. I don't, you know, I don't want to even touch the strategic planning stuff, but I think we have enough on our plate just dealing with the hospitals that we have. And I would only support it this year, the idea that we're going to lower the tax requisition. It's an anomaly for me. Usually I would support putting money into reserves.
Okay, thank you, Director Anderson.
Thanks. Briefly, the motion ties this to a strategic planning session. And so my question, I guess, really of the chair is, at this point, when would you like to be calling said strategic planning session? Because if you're hoping to do that this winter before we finalize the budget, then, you know, I'm happy to support or not support it. This is relatively moot. But if we're going to have our strategic planning session after the budget is passed, I need to think really hard on this motion. So I'm assuming the board will go with the will of the chair on the timing of this. So I'd like to hear from the chair what your thoughts are on the timing. Thank you.
Chair, just for clarity, the motion is to reduce the 4.4 million for the 2021 budget only at this time.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. As it read, it seemed like we would reduce it for now, have a strategic planning session, and then reconsider. And so it wasn't clear to me whether that was.
I will get the motion read back. Director Anderson? Director Anderson? Yeah,
Thank
sorry.
you.
I will have the motion read.
Thank you.
Who's got it? Which one?
Yeah, so I believe Director Adams did mention the strategic plan in his original motion, so maybe some clarity there. But so the requisition be reduced by 4.4 million for the 2021 budget until such time as the strategic plan is completed, is what I had originally.
Okay. And that's what I heard as well. Unless there's any amendments to the motion, that's the one that will stay on.
So my question still stands to the chair around your suggested timing of our strategic planning session.
Well, I think I'm a strong believer that we have strategic direction that looks at all the factors that impact what we do as a board before we make decisions about chopping requisitions. We've held this tax requisition stable for probably 15 years or so. I think it was 1999 when we first initiated a gradual increase. We've held that 4 years. And like I said, we're under a lot of pressure, whether it's to reduce taxes to our citizens or whether it's to expand into long-term care or in mental health and addictions or upgrades to small communities, health services. And I think that direction can only come through a strategic planning session. The difficulty is how do we do that in the COVID environment where things are impractical to get together. Now, maybe we can do a strategic session where we're adequately spaced and facilitated, not necessarily here, but maybe in a different facility. We have a large board and we would have to make sure everything's there. I don't think that there's any hope that we could get it done before Christmas. That was realistic. I think that working on it, maybe January, maybe for the January meeting, we could have a strategic session, at least get something back. Do we have a meeting in December? No, but we could keep the board fully posted as to. Yeah, well, we would need to poll the board on comfort of the directors to attend an in-person meeting regardless. So we would have to do that first. So I would think mid to late January. Yeah, or a blended one, but have that sorted out and done somewhere in there. Does that answer your question, Director Anderson?
Sorry, I've got a screaming kid in the background here. If that is your will to pull the board, that would be great. I think it would be good to have some options from the chair staff around how we could do a strategic planning session. But for me, knowing that Director Adams' motion is intended to reduce the budget for 2021, regardless of the timing of the strategic planning session, they're not as linked. So I probably wouldn't be supporting the motion as presented, but I still would love to do a strategic planning session at our earliest comfort. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Grieve, Kerr and Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of lost my link here. I'm just back. Yeah, I agree. I don't think we should be willy-nilly on this. As I tried to reiterate before, this is healthcare. We're facing a crisis in senior care right now. We're feeling a crisis in addiction and mental health issues. We are the leaders. We have to lead. In order to do that, we have to have our own budget. We have to have our own house in order. So I would really like this discussion to be a little more fulsome than we have right now. Thank you.
Okay. Director Kerr.
Thank you, Chair. And I totally agree with the statements of Director Grieve. Therefore, yeah, I'm going to make a motion to defer this motion until receipt of the staff report on the implications of reduction. And I could maybe explain my thinking on that if possible.
I'll second that.
Okay, on a motion on deferral, just Director Kerr, it's just to defer the motion on the floor, which was read out.
Yep.
There is no motion to request a staff report. There was a discussion. It was when I brought up how I would see things proceeding on deferral, on appropriateness or timing. Is there any discussion?
Yes, if I could continue.
Just hang
Sure.
on. You've moved a motion to defer. Yeah. It is seconded.
Yeah. Could I just address it?
On appropriateness and time and place.
And timeliness. You know, to me, the discussion about strategic plan is the timing is open-ended. We're not sure, but a staff report, I would expect that we could have a staff report back at the next meeting. So, and staff could certainly answer that, but I think the next meeting would be appropriate in terms of when the motion was deferred to, and then we'd have more information to make this decision.
Okay. I'm going to go to Director Frisch.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just going to clarify, could it be a motion to refer it to a staff report and then consider it when staff come back with that report? Leave it up to staff to set the timing?
Okay, I will just check with my parliamentarian. Can you refer something to a staff report? Like, can this motion be referred to a report back from staff looking at the different options?
Yes, yes. As I understand the recommendation, the resolution from Director Kerr was that the matter be referred until a report comes back on the options.
Okay, but there was no motion to request that report from staff.
I think it's embedded in the request from Director Kerr.
Okay.
And so we would come back with a report on options.
Super. Thank you for that clarification. Director Frisch, does that answer your questions? Okay. Director Adams, final word.
You're muted, Director Adams.
Thank you. Speaking to the motion on time and deferral motion on time and place. Chair, I completely agree with your comments that the likelihood of having a strategic planning between now and the end of the year is slim to none, which means we're looking at sometime in the new year. In fairness to our Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital Board staff, in particular our finance staff, they need to move forward on making the financial plan. And that is why the motion, the original motion was to reduce the 4.4 million requisition. And then with the understanding that a strategic plan would happen sometime in the new year, and we would revisit it at that time. To put this off for a staff report, we don't know when we'll get that back. We don't know when the next meeting is. Will we have that in time? I think we're not doing a disservice to our staff to be able to move forward.
Okay, and I would have our staff, our acting CAO.
Thank you. So the legislation does require that the hospital board pass a provisional budget by the end of this year. And the recommendation as presented in the report is to do just that. That can still be accomplished at the $17 million mark. That is only a provisional budget. And of course, the final budget must be adopted by the end of March. It would be that final budget that would take into consideration the staff report on options, reducing the requisition, reserve amounts, capital needs, and whatnot. So I think that in this instance, both scenarios can unfold. We could consider the referral from Director Kerr, the staff report in the new year on options, and then if the board would still be able to approve a resolution on the provisional budget today, then we're set.
Right. And if we can put together some form of strategic session.
And we will look at doing that strategic session early in the new year.
Gives us time because we don't have to have our final budget approved to the end of March.
Correct.
Correct. So we're not making decisions on how much people are or aren't going to be taxed.
Correct.
Okay. So the motion to refer. Any further speakers? No. What? Sorry, 1 second.
If you want to call the board,
Okay.
people in attendance.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, last comment, Director Arbor. On referral.
Yeah, thank you. Hopefully you can hear me. Yeah, I'm still with Director Adams. I think I wouldn't mind seeing a, I don't see the merit of the deferral. I think the options are already pretty clear to the board. I'm not sure how much new information is going to come to the table, and I think it would send a signal to both our constituents and Island Health.
Okay.
Our intent.
Yeah, we have to be careful on how we speak to a referral. So.
Oh, sorry. Okay, so I'll vote. I won't be in favor of deferral. There you go. Sorry.
Yeah. Well. Okay, and we had one other one. I think it was Director Goldberg. Yeah, but you turned your hand off. Did you still want to speak on deferral appropriateness?
I'm just wondering if it is a deferral or a referral for a report. I just wanted to be really clear on that. Thanks.
It is a deferral or referral for a report to staff to come back on possible options and implications.
Thank you for that.
Okay. Is everybody clear on it? Yeah, it's Director Abram on appropriateness, and that's time and place.
Yes, the original
On the
motion.
substance of the motion.
The original motion can still take place with the referral motion taking place after this one is either passed or not. Then a referral motion on options can be made at that time and brought forward at a later date.
Okay.
There's no need. I will not be supporting referral. I will not be supporting deferral at this time.
Okay. So on the motion to refer, I'm going to call a question. All those in favor, and I have in attendance, I'm going to go through it one at a time on this one. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Director Anderson.
In favor.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Morin.
Sorry, I was muted. Opposed.
Director Bissinger.
Opposed.
Director Evans.
Opposed.
Director Frisch.
In favor.
Director Sullivan.
In favor.
Director Minions.
Opposed.
Director Abram.
Opposed?
Director Davis.
Favor?
Director Adams.
Opposed?
Director Unger.
Opposed?
Director Lee. Director Hamir.
Opposed?
Director Cole Hamilton. Director Cole Hamilton.
I said in favor, but perhaps not loudly enough. Thank you.
Okay. Director Colburn.
In favor.
Director Wally.
Opposed?
Director Kerr.
In favor?
Director Arbor.
Opposed?
Director, oh, the only one that's left is me, and I'm in favor of the motion. The motion is defeated, 11 to 10, I believe.
This is a weighted vote.
Oh, is it weighted? Oh, okay. 35 to 40 weighted. So motion is defeated. So back to the original motion. Can we have that read out, please?
Okay, so that is that the requisition be reduced by 4.4 million for the 2021 budget until such a time as the strategic plan is completed.
Okay, so should that read provisional budget?
We would need a motion following that to approve the provisional budget.
Okay, but the motion is to reduce the provisional budget by, okay. So just for clarity, it's the provisional budget we're talking about. So is everybody clear on the motion? To reduce the requisition by 4.4? Okay,
Chair, I have my hand raised. I thought I heard in the motion, Director Adams say by 4 million, not 4.4. Could we just have clarification, please?
4.4.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I'm unclear on why the wording is until such time as a strategic planning session is held. I'm unclear what the purpose of that is and what the significance is. It seems contradictory to the clear intent of the motion, which is to reduce the requisition for this 1 year.
Okay. Then I have Director Colburn.
Sorry, is that my turn then? Or was the answer still coming for the last speaker?
Sorry, no, you are, hang on a sec, turn this.
Chair, if it would be helpful, in agreement with the seconder, we could delete the reference to the strategic plan, just to make it clear. I think the intent is that this is for 2021 only. We will have our strategic planning and then we will move forward on a 2022 budget at the appropriate time and make a decision then.
The seconder is in agreement.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just before everybody leaps in here, how do we handle it, James, for clarity on this motion? Does it need to be rewritten or?
So the motion is in the possession of the board, and respectfully, that means it's not the mover and seconder's responsibility to make changes. If there's no disagreement with removing those words in reference to the strategic plan from the motion, then Mr. Chair, you can move forward with the motion, being that it's a reduction in the provisional budget.
Friendly amendment.
It's a friendly amendment, if you like. Yeah, as long as there's no opposition from directors on that front.
No, I understand that part. So very quickly, is anyone opposed to removing reference to the strategic plan from the motion? So it would simplify this motion that the provisional budget be reduced by 4.4 million for 2021. And now I heard some other words that was restricted to only this budget. One time, I think, was how what Director Adams said in the last thing. Right. Right. Okay. So this is strictly 2021's provisional budget. Is everybody clear? Okay. I have Director Colburn, Adams, and Anderson.
I would make a subsequent then after this was finished to make sure that staff had direction to plan that strategic planning session as soon as they can in the new year, if that is what's required. But I wouldn't have anything else on this motion as it stands. Thank you.
Okay. Director Adams.
Nothing further. Thanks, Chair.
Okay. Director Anderson.
Yeah, essentially, I was going to say what Director Colburn said. I mean, I think we're getting a little bit muddled because if we do a strategic plan in the early new year and decide that we want to change the 2021 budget to decrease it further or increase it back to the 17 or above, that's still within our purview before March. So for me, what's much more of interest is when a strategic plan is going to happen. So I will leave that to the subsequent and just not support the motion as presented, but it doesn't much matter if we're going to have a strategic planning session soon. Thanks.
Okay. Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. I support the motion. My point before on the previous deferral was that we could still accomplish this, but have a staff report that outlined the options for what the actual reduction might be. But I did want to say that I think we can, in fact, still hold a strategic plan, and I think we can speak to that in the management report. There are lots of options for doing such a session virtually. I think some of us have had experience with sessions where it's possible to be broken into groups and reconvene. So I would encourage us to address that in relation to the management report after we've dealt with this. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Any further speakers on the motion? Seeing no further speakers, I'll chime in with my 2 bits worth. I will be supporting it. I believe strongly that we should be looking at options at various, ranging from 0 reduction to 100% reduction. And I think those are the kind of things that we need to talk about. So I will not be supporting the motion. So on the motion, and then we're going to go through the order again because it is, and it would be weighted, James. And it's a weighted vote. So Director Grieve.
Opposed.
Director Anderson.
Opposed.
Director Hillian.
In favor.
Director Morin.
In favor.
Bissinger.
In favor.
Evans.
In favor.
Frisch.
In favor.
Director Sullivan.
Opposed.
Minions.
In favor.
Director Abram.
In favor.
Director Davis.
Favor.
Director Adams.
In favor.
Director Unger.
In favor.
Director Lee. Director Hamir.
In favor.
Director Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Director Colburn.
In favor.
Director Wally.
In favor.
Director Kerr.
Opposed.
Director Arbor. You there, Daniel?
Yeah, I just struggled for a bit. I'm in favor.
Okay. And Director Cornfield, and I'm opposed. Okay, so I think there's no doubt on that one, is there? 56-19 in favor of the motion. Okay, So moving on.
Mr. Chair, I wonder if we could have the agenda on the screen moved up a bit. It's got stalled there at the beginning.
What are you looking for?
On the screen, the agenda is there.
Yeah, no, Director Wally, what part? Just the recommendation from
Yes,
the
that
Chief
would be-
Administrative Officer?
That would be great.
Okay. So before we move to the recommendations here, is there any further direction that the board would like to direct?
Well, Chair, I would like to know if you want direction from the board around the timing of the strategic plan, or if you want liberty to work on that with staff. If you do want direction, I would happily so move.
Well, there's no reference to strategic planning in any of the motions that were passed. So you want direction? Yeah, I can see staff nodding their head. Yes, please.
All right, well, I would happily move then that a strategic planning session be coordinated at the earliest responsible opportunity.
Second.
Okay. I think the motion is fairly clear. All in favor? Or sorry, I'm going to go. Discussion. Director Colburn.
Hi, I'm also hoping that that strategic plan would include a report of implications of this tax reduction implication and also other options. So if that was to be included, that's great. If it wasn't, I would like to.
Can we take it as a friendly? I see staff nodding their head saying yes, they would like to prepare some options for us. So
with to the mover, then would you like me to include that, or would you like me to amend it? Or
I was going to suggest just a friendly one. Staff can get it written out, then we can hear. Sorry. Yeah, they made the note, so it will be part of the strategic plan session.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So is there anything further? We did have it seconded, I think. Yep. Okay.
My hand up, Mr. Chair.
That sounds like Director Wally.
Correct.
Okay, so go ahead, Director Wally.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in my opinion, I believe it's inappropriate to have a strategic planning session that is not face-to-face. And I think with COVID on the increase, which it seems to be, that the face-to-face isn't viable at this present time, I think we should delay it until we can get together. A virtual strategic session to me just doesn't seem to cut it. I don't think it's possible to really express the opinion face to face virtually as we should. And I don't think we're going to get the results we're looking for. That's my opinion.
So my understanding was to look at various ways that a strategic session could be held, or at least looking at options and whether or not we could poll the board. And is that something that staff could do outside of the meeting? And they could poll the board as to see who would be participating in a one-on-one, who would want a virtual or a blended session, or those such as yourself, Director Wally, that feel that it should be put off until we can meet one-on-one. Okay, I have Director Lee now.
I support delaying the strategic plan till 2022. And the reason is that COVID, number one, very dangerous to be having all the board meet and be close to each other in strategic. But the other part is until the provincial government gets organized and moving, and they make their strategies and they communicate their strategies with Island Health. We're supposed to be partners, 60-40 with Island Health. So we really can't plan in absence of what the upper level government and Island Health are going to be proposing or doing. And we need to actually have our chair go to those joint planning meetings when they resume and get an idea of what the future is going to look like from Island Health's point of view. so that we can properly plan. And so I think 2021 is not going to be it's not going to produce a very good strategic plan unless we have our partners come forward with their plans as well.
Okay, and I would just like to remind the board that the presentations on Island Health's direction from the last chair's meeting was provided on our portal, which showed their priorities and where we sit. And I believe it was number 1 and 2, Campbell River and Comox Valley for seniors healthcare. So those priorities have already been done and the package was sent out to the director's portal. So on the motion.
But we have a new government now. So priorities can change and we need to let them get their feet on the ground.
Director Lee, I have directors Colburn, Adam, and Minions.
And
Director
Abram.
Colburn. Or sorry, Abram, not Adams. Director Colburn.
Thank you for that. Just speaking to the motion and the comments that have been had around the table about appropriateness and availability and things like that. I just speaking for myself and possibly other small communities, I think that we have had enough of a pause in regular business and have been given the power by the government to hold meetings via distance. I know that for myself, at least, I know you'll be polling the board, but I believe that there are ways to do this, that we can have breakout sessions. I've been in many meetings lately where we do that kind of work and then all come back together and have a fulsome conversation such as we've had here today. So I am absolutely in favor of holding strategic planning session as soon as possible via both of these kind of in-person and distance methods. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Colburn. Director Abram.
Okay, first of all, I'll say that I totally agree with Director Wally. The best strategic planning sessions are in-person, facilitated, and that's where we will get a good strategic plan. To do it in breakout sessions, in smaller groups or whatever, that's not on as far as I'm concerned. If we do it, everybody virtual, fine, all at once, that, you know, maybe we have to do, but I am most in favor of a in-person session.
Yep, and just to remind the board that the motion here is merely to provide direction to staff and the chair to look at options for a strategic planning session early in the new year. That's all we're talking about. And that would include polling the board to see whether people are in favor of either or blended or not at all. So, Director Minions.
In favor?
Oh, I haven't called the question.
Sorry, I took my hand down. My comment was made.
Okay, I thought perhaps your words of wisdom would come flowing through. Yeah.
I'm going to say I support doing it. I think as hopeful as we are that COVID could be gone sometime in 2021, it very well could be going on for a couple of years. And so I think there would be ways with breakout sessions or on different dates to tentatively plan to have it in early 2021.
Thank you, Director Minions. Director Unger, Sullivan, and Grieve.
Thank you, Chair. I fully support the motion. We have to do business differently and we have to figure out how we're going to do it. We have to keep moving forward. So I would leave it to staff to come up with some options on how to hold it and then pull the board and let's move forward.
Okay, thank you. Director Sullivan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just mentioning Cumberland has had a couple of meetings open to the public and it's just in a larger hall. It's a bit more difficult, but the 6 feet everybody had, and it seemed to work, although the board is a little bit larger than the amount of people that we had.
Okay, thank you, Director Grieve, and then Director Davis.
Oh, I would just encourage the chair to call the question. Thank you.
Okay, Director Davis.
Just a procedural question. If we decide to have a face-to-face meeting and need to move the venue to somewhere else, does that require a resolution prior to?
No.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. So on the questions, we'll call a question. Is there anyone opposed?
Opposed.
We're going to have to go through the list again. Director Grieve.
In favor.
Okay. Thank you. Director Anderson.
Favor.
Hillian.
In favor.
Morin.
Sorry, in favor.
Bissinger.
In favor.
Evans.
In favor.
Frisch.
In favor.
Sullivan.
In favor.
Minions.
In favor.
Abram.
Opposed.
Davis.
Favor.
Adams.
In favor.
Unger.
In favor.
Lee. Hamir.
In favor.
Cole Hamilton.
In favor.
Colburn.
In favor.
Wally.
Opposed.
Kerr.
In favor.
Arbor.
In favor.
And I'm in favor. Overwhelmingly in favor. So the motion passes. Now, on the recommendation from staff that the 2021 provisional budget for the Comox Strathcona Regional Hospital District be adopted as amended and presented in the staff report November
So moved.
November
Second.
6th.
Moved.
Thank you. Moved by Frisch, seconded by Lee. Any further discussion? Any comments from staff? Well, they're shaking their heads. Good. Okay, so call the question. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, call the question. The motion was approved. Now on to the management report.
Move receipt.
I'll move receipt.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded the management report. Any discussion on receipt of the management report? Director Adams.
Thank you, Chair. Item 1 regarding service level needs. The report makes reference to a November 28th meeting. I don't have that scheduled. Could somebody enlighten me as to whether that's confirmed?
Yeah, it says November 20th, 2020. Were we originally planning a late November meeting?
It's a Saturday.
Yeah, 20th is a Friday, and that wouldn't have been that. So,
If I can, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I think that the management report probably should have read November 12th being today's meeting.
so we
And-
will amend it.
Yeah, it'll be
The
up.
date. Okay,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Any further discussion on the management report? Director Lee.
Yes, item 3, I'd just like to point out that after that meeting with Island Health that we had back in February 27th, that we voted in favor of not funding long-term care beds. You'll see in number 3. And we did not, also, there was something else in there. But not all of their priorities that they presented at that meeting were supported by the board. Yet, you know, we keep hearing from the chair and others that they're still pounding for long-term care investments. And I just think that, you know, it's way beyond what we can afford from our local taxpayers. That's a provincial responsibility, and they should, you know, continue to pay 100% of long-term care.
If I can, that is the first part of number 3 is that the board support the strategic planning session.
Yeah.
So the rest is just directions into that, and we've already approved the way we're going with the strategic planning session.
Yeah, at that meeting,
Okay.
we said
So-
no to funding long-term care. And we also said no to hiring a facilitator for $20,000 to facilitate a strategic plan. And so those two things should be, you know, taken
I
into
don't see that as
consideration.
part of the management report.
Number 3.
It doesn't say anything about a facilitator
Well,
that I
somewhere
can
in
see
there
on the
did.
management report. Anyway, is there anything further on the management report? Julie Colburn, Director Colburn, you had your hand up.
Thank you, sir. So on that number 3, does the motion that we just made supersede this because it says scheduled to session to be scheduled once a face-to-face meeting can be accommodated? So I'm just curious about that.
Staff?
So the resolution the board just passed is that we will be looking to conduct a strategic planning session at the earliest responsible opportunity. Staff will look to develop some options and then pull the board on what those options would look like before finalizing any dates.
Thank you for that.
Where's Mud? Yeah, I think that's clear. Anything further on the management report? Seeing no speakers, call the question on receipt. Is there anyone opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. So bylaws and resolutions done, nothing under new business, no addendum, no media.
Move termination.
I would move
Thank you.
termination.
Second.
Thank you. We have moved and seconded termination. Anyone opposed? Hearing none, thank you very much. Meeting is terminated.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank